Hi, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to have some fun with some Wilton Creamy Peach icing color. This food coloring is composed of yellow number 6, red number 3, and yellow number 5. And true to its name, on yarn, it breaks from sort of a pink to a bright orange. And I think that happens because there is in general so much more yellow orange than the red in this mixture. I am currently dissolving a heaping half teaspoon of this icing color into half a cup of water. In this pot, I have 8 cups of water and currently no vinegar. I'm going to pour in our creamy peach and sort of stir it up, which all things considered is pretty, isn't super concentrated or pigmented, I suppose. I decided to go ahead and add another half cup of water to the cup where we mixed the dyes just to get that last bit of pigment. Here I have our yarn for the day. This is about 100 grams of LionBrand Fisherman's wool yarn. And it's one of those twist colors where there's 3 plies of the dark brown, 1 of the pale brown. And since we know we have a color here that breaks, starting with the hand wound ball, we could end up getting a really lovely gradient throughout the yarn, depending on how far the dye penetrates. So one of the questions for today is, will this penetrate all the way through, or will we still see some white towards the center? The pot is warm, but not yet hot, and so I'm going to start sort of adding our yarn to try to get it into the pot. So even though, you know, we see some color go on the yarn right away, and I'm going to flip you, well, we're pretty buoyant now. I'm going to try to flip it to get the rest of it wet. Okay, maybe it's not going to want to flip. That is fine. I am, you can see, pushing it to try to bring in some of the water. In general, I think that this is a yarn that has high lanolin. It's fairly oily, so in general it takes a little longer for colors to absorb compared to, say, Knit Picks Wool of the Andes or something. But yeah, I am going to sort of at this stage let this sit for about 5 minutes. I want to allow, you know, this to kind of get soaked, allow things to heat up a bit before I start slowly adding more and more vinegar to the pot. We started with 8 cups of water. I'm going to go ahead and add 4 more. Now as I pour this over the top, you can see that the color has not yet really struck. Maybe some of the pinks have started to bind, but overall, like the yellow colors that give us the orange have not yet. I'll come back when our 5 minutes are up. I'm going to add a first tablespoon of white vinegar. I am not expecting that this is going to suddenly allow everything to bind, but certainly a bunch of the reds should start binding. I'm also going to reduce the heat, and slowly I will keep coming and adding more and more vinegar to help all of these colors bind to the yarn. I will be back in 10 minutes. 10 minutes in, our ball has some really beautiful pinks on the outside, and there's still a lot of orange present. I think we have 12 cups of water in there. So I'm now going to add 2 more tablespoons of vinegar. Again, I'm staying slow. I want there to be time for stuff to diffuse to the center. And that was 2 heaping tablespoons. But I am pretty excited with where this is going, and hopefully we'll see some cool breaking towards the center, and we'll get more than just like really shallow penetration. So I'll be back in another 10 minutes and we'll take another look. After 10 more minutes, I'm still seeing a lot of those orange colors, but again, a lot of color we've got the great pink orange on the outside. Whenever you are dealing with a ball or a cake or something, there's a lot less surface area for the colors to bind to. And it's just going to take longer, could use more acid. You just need to be really patient with it. At this stage, I'm gonna go ahead and add, 1, 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of white vinegar. And I could potentially decide to add more, especially since I know that this particular yarn does seem to require a little more acid and time. But I'm going to check back in 15 minutes this time. After those 15 minutes, I think it's a little lighter. Not significantly for sure. There's still, some color in there. I think a lot has been absorbed into the yarn, but I am going to add some more vinegar as I turn off the heat here. So I'm going to add, for good measure, 1, 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of vinegar, and I am going to turn off the heat. I plan to leave the yarn in this pot until it cools completely, which will give it, some hours for residual color to absorb. And with this heat in there, it should. If it can reach yarn, then it should absorb eventually. After several hours, the water is completely room temperature. And ooh, I chose Creamy Peach for this project because I know that this yarn looks amazing when dyed with warm tones. And now I am just not so gently squeezing this to try to remove some excess water, because in a little while, or by a little while I mean in a couple days, I am going to need to unravel this onto a niddy noddy. The water that's left behind is, there's a tinge of color, but it's actually really clear. I am not going to wash this yarn before I unravel it onto a niddy noddy, but I do sort of want to peek towards the center a bit. And through many layers, we do have some color. We've got actually more orange on the outside. It looks like we've got some pinks towards the center and some nice pastels. So I'm really curious to see exactly how this unravels. It's the next day, and the outside, well, not the bottom, but the top actually feels a little bit dry. We've already peeked in, but I now need to wind this onto a niddy noddy because I can't really leave this for 2 weeks. We could risk getting like mildew or mold. You just wouldn't want this. It won't dry well when it's in this ball form. Here is the first look at our lovely gradient. The color transitions from this red and orange through some like pink and orange to then like more of a pale pink at the end. It'll be a little easier to see once the yarn is off the niddy noddy how balanced it is versus how much is the pastel, but it's really exciting. I think that one of the things that excites me the most is that we clearly have a red, orange, and pink all from one orange dye mixture. I'm intrigued that the pink went all the way through to the center, but I'm very, very happy that we got color throughout. And even in this pastel range towards the outside, there is pink, but then there's also pale orange that goes on in there. Our water basin is full, and let's see what happens when we wash our yarn. There was a little bit of orange left in the dye pot, just a hint, but it doesn't look like we're really seeing any bleeding here. Hooray! Alright, let's add a little bit of clear dish soap. Sometimes I like doing this as just like a color check. If bleeding is going to happen, I'd rather it happen at this stage than later on. but I'm truly thrilled that the color penetrated all the way to the center. I know that that can happen on Wool of the Andes, but I wasn't sure about this one. And that still looks clear. Wahoo! I love using these techniques like this to get a gradient. Winding the hand-wound ball takes a little more time than, say, doing a yarn cake, but I think the results are worth it. All right, I'm gonna rinse this 1 or 2 more times and then hang it up to dry. I really love a good barber pole on yarn, and it is so fun to see just how much more color absorbs into the 1 light ply versus the 3 dark brown plies. I mean, granted, on this reddest section, like right here, you can see that that dark brown did absorb some color. But on these paler sections, the brown itself looks reasonably consistent. I think that we got a really, really fun gradient where we have reds and oranges that shift to pinks and oranges in the center. The one thing about it is that creamy peach is a lot less concentrated than, say, violet or black. So even though I used a half teaspoon of the food coloring, like I might with Wilton's Violet, I think that if I was just dip dyeing, it might not have been as saturated. I think that if you were to go bump it up and go to a whole teaspoon, you could really up the volume a bit more. Nevertheless, I think that this is something that is really, really fun, and I don't know, fades are so in right now that these gradients that are not like a smooth gradient, because it's a variegated gradient, can be worked really fun into another fade type project or on its own into a lovely cowl or hat or something really, really fun. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you are subscribed to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel and that you give the video a like. Should I play around with some more gradients like this? Do you like this technique? Let me know in the comments. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and if you are a huge fan of this YouTube channel and want to support us on another level, check out the ChemKnits Patreon. Patreon is a platform where viewers can support the creators that they really enjoy. In exchange, you can get some cool perks, such as shout-outs in videos, early access to new yarn buying videos, behind-the-scenes sneak peeks, and more. So you can find the link in the video description and iCard if you would like to learn more. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.